That's the thing. I don't know, Richard. I don't know what we're talking about. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, or wherever you might be in the world. We're here. Richard's just asked what we're talking about. And the thing is, I don't know. Well, I kind of do know. I do know two things for certain. Thing number A is, of course, the new DJI thing. And thing number B that's really caught my attention now is just how many of those global hawks they've lost and just how awful the ground control station must be for them to keep losing them through human factors. So that's what I've got. So shall we start? Oh, and Mark's on tour tomorrow. Catch Mark at the Royal Albert Hall tomorrow. Oh no, don't! Oh no, don't even talk about Mark doing that. Anyway, move on very swiftly for Knives. Mark's not doing that tomorrow. This new DJI thing looks very, very nice indeed. I quite fancy one. I think it's probably time to upgrade from a P3P. Seems to tick all the boxes.
Except it has geofencing.
Can you all stick your affiliate links in the video description?
It's not been an exciting launch because someone basically spilt the beans on it for everyone already. Look, fair play to him, and he managed to get hold of one a week early. I don't know where. I'm guessing Argos, if I was a betting man, or a dealer let him have one earlier than he should. What was quite funny was he was racking up the views until all his videos went offline yesterday. So DJI must have got to him with something. They probably locked him in a cupboard or something for the next 24 hours, then took him offline. The product looks interesting. You know, there's no question. Is it anything magical? No. In some ways, they're selling you tech we've had before. You know, they're making a fuss. It's got a vertical camera. They put a vertical camera on the Mavic Pro and then took it off the next two versions and gave it back to you. So they're sort of doing stuff now where they give you something, take it away, and then give it back to you and say it's new again. But it actually is very, very good for what it is. There's a sub 250 gram model, although you've got to take into account there is an extended flight time battery, which puts it over 250 grams, which wasn't fully understood before release. Image quality looks outstanding. It has all-round object avoidance sensors, and this new remote is interesting too. It's probably the most interesting bit of it. There are some quirks in what DJI seem to be doing. There's a quirk that says it seems to be the case in America, at least. You can order it today with this new remote, but you can't order it with the RCN1, which is available with other drones for about 2-3 months. I don't know. That might simply be a shipping issue into the US. It could be something related to that, but that seems a bit odd. There's a lot to like. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's an iPhone 8 compared to an iPhone 7 is probably the term I'd use for it. What has been super interesting is the low numbers on the videos from some of the big channels. The views are not high, and that's probably because that fantastic UK guy has basically stolen them all. And look, he's not had great numbers. He's had 50, 60, 70, 80, 90k, which is fantastic for a small channel. If you compare that to the big boys, they'd expect that in 2-3 hours. I haven't checked it a couple of hours. I'll actually have a look now and see what they're up to.
Going up. I was interested in that myself, and it's Darren McCarty is the chap. Darren, if you're watching, hello. I'm sorry you couldn't make it. So I've got an email from him 10 minutes ago. You can't make it on now, but good on you. I quite like it when the underdog, as it were, gets a scoop on all those big channels. Makes me chuckle.
Yeah, and you know, he's certainly managed to get a lot of info out there. Fair play to him, and he's done a good job. You know, he really has done a good job. He does a great flight over Blackpool, just showing the low light capabilities on it. It's a hard one because you've got all of these KOLs who want to tell you it is the best thing. You must spend your money now. You know, they're all there. They're not reviews. The thing people have to understand of all this stuff that's come out today is marketing. It's not a review, it's marketing. These videos from the likes of iJustine, iPhoto, these are great channels. I watch them all, but you've got to take them as what they are. Peter McKinnon's is the biggest video out. It's just hit 100k, but he was in Italy. So who do we think paid, wasn't he? Who do we think paid for that? You have to be realistic in what you see.
Yeah,
you know. You know, but I think it's a good product. I think there's a lot to like.
When's yours arriving, Bruce?
Mate, I'm not having one. Geofencing is the killer deal breaker for me. I mean, DJI, I saw Brendan actually, who no longer works for DJI, but still basically acts as a marketing spokesman, saying, oh, this is wonderful because they're so safe. Well, they're that safe. Take the geofencing off. I mean, it's like, because it's just too restrictive. You go somewhere, you want to film something. Oh, damn, I can't, because yet you may be certified to fly in that area. You may have clearances to fly in there, but DJI will say, you may have paid money for this drone, but we still own it, and we'll only let you fly it when we say it's suitable to do so. And as we've seen in Ukraine, that opens up a huge potential for bad things to happen.
It's an interesting sell for them, this model, because there's a lot to like here, but we're at that stage. There's nothing groundbreaking here. You know what? If we look at what this drone is, it has a better sensor than the last one. It has sensors that other drones have. It has a camera that turns vertically that other drones have. The only new thing we haven't seen on DJI before is that the camera can almost look fully vertical. That's about the only new feature. Everything else is robbed from previous bigger models. It is amazing they've been able to make it smaller, but that's just in many ways Moore's law, if we're going to use a term. That's been the case in computers for forever. So the trajectory of DJI at the moment isn't new features, it's making what they've got smaller, but we're not really seeing much innovation in the drone space now other than size.
Who remembers a few years ago when we were all saying, yeah, they're going to bring out a sub 250. When the rules started changing, we were all, yeah. And it was inevitable. And now it looks like they're focusing a lot of effort in that piece of the market because it is the most popular area of the market. People can do a lot more with a sub 250 drone legally than they can with anything else. And so naturally, people buy those. And naturally, if that's where people are spending their money, that's where they'll focus their marketing and development activities.
I think it's quite interesting. Sorry, go on after you, Ian.
No, I was just going to say the pricing is now creeping. You know, that's the big thing we're now starting to see as a result of this smaller drone. You know, if I look at the pricing on this, they are going to sell it on its own without a remote for people who already have that RCN1. So that'll be Mavic 3 users or Mini 2 users or A2S users, I think, as well, for £639 for the drone only. And if we compare that to a price of a Mini 2, just a second, and a Mini 2 is $419 with the remote. So, you know, the price of this has increased substantially. So they're trying to shift this Mini, you know, their Mini line has very much been high volume, low margin. And they're now trying to move it more into the higher margin space, clearly, from this pricing. Yes, it's got extra features, but what do those extra features actually cost compared to the increase in price?
I think that they were, Brendan in particular, already mentioned, was very keen on 250 grams about, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe at the very most, maybe not that far ago. But I wonder if they pinned the tail on the donkey on that, and because they knew they were working towards something of that size, that they could handle it. They knew several years in advance, and then so it'd be a really good idea to have your lawyer shouting like Billy-O all over the place. Let's make 250 the way. Let's do that.
Yeah.
It just seems very, very long. Hello, Brandon. And Brandon's got a very, if you looked on the link to the end, you'll see he's got a very nice separate lift thrust. I had an argument about separate lift thrust with someone this week on the wonderful LinkedIn. Great place to argue. So have a look for Brandon's machine there. It seems a measured thing. If you was, it's between that and the Autel, isn't it? That's what you're juggling in the air.
Can you hear me? I don't know if I'm muted. Sorry, I come off the screen. I was looking at the pricing, and to be honest, they've just given Autel a big problem. You know, why would you buy the Autel now? The Autel doesn't even come with a remote with the screen for the same money.
Geofencing.
Yeah, that's about the only real choice. If it isn't a problem for you, it's got to be the DJI in many ways. The problem Autel have here is, for the same money you're getting the Autel, you're getting a remote with a screen built in here as well. Again, DJI have leveraged their capacity to make product as cheap as they can and put other people in problems. There is something very interesting on this launch. I was picking my calculator up today, because what this also does is bringing into question how much they've actually ripped off is not a term I'll use, but charged their Mavic 3 users, because for
Yeah.
859, right, they're giving you this drone with this remote. So 859 and 6
Live mass, live
so
calculation.
$220 they're charging you for this remote, which is a cutback version of the RC Pro. The RC Pro they're charging Mavic users £950 for. So where is the other 700 quid gone? Because it's got a screen, it's got sticks, and it's got a wireless system. So where is the other £700? Because it ain't. It's crazy, isn't it? It's a dramatic cost difference.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of very angry Mavic 3 owners out there today. The rush for that one, because that's not quite enough, is it? I don't know if Mark's listening out, Kieran. He's packing his bag for a gig that I'm not allowed to talk about tomorrow at the Albert Hall. He's not here. He's flying an airship in the Albert Hall tomorrow in London. But anyway, I didn't say that. So he's packing his bag. It's interesting all around. They've plainly seen 250 grams. Bruce saw 250 grams with his flying wing all those years ago. And it's the world we live in now. I saw the videos of it handling the wind was pretty amazing as well.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything bad to say about it. I think the product's good. The price is more expensive than we used to, but for what you're getting, I think it's good. I think they're cannibalizing their own markets again. They're in this strange position where it's put other two models, the A2 in a strange position, and the A2S even in a strange position.
It's got to go away, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got to go away, isn't it?
It makes you wonder if you're going to end up with this and the Mavic 3 now. You know, you're just doing that. I do wonder if they're struggling with some manufacturing capacity right now, because numbers seem very low. But there's all sorts of strange issues in China anyway, getting product out. We're hearing that from everyone. So yeah, I think it'll sell extremely well. It's going to be a fantastic drone. It's just nothing particularly exciting. That's there's nothing new here really. It's just smaller.
Move along. Nothing to see here. Move along.
It's just the iPhone, though, isn't it? It's just the iPhone. You know, if you take the iPhone 7 to iPhone 8, it's smaller, lighter. You know, Apple went through a phase on their phones of making them another bit thinner, another bit thinner, and adding something on. And they are very much playing Apple's playbook. DJI have a number of times it's been commented they see Apple as the standard they want to be at, and their marketing comes from the same playbook as well.
Yeah, it's very, very, very tidy stuff. Well, let's move along. And involve Richard this time. Maybe we should. Now, Coventry, they open that. Actually, there's another thing we could talk. I'm not sure if you'll want to talk about it, but one of your competitors is shutting down, closing doors and going away. I'm not sure if they were ever a UTM, and I've forgotten their name. As I'm trying to say it,
Skyward.
Skyward, that's it.
That's how important they were.
Yeah,
I think their name was Skyward Ava Rising Company.
That's right. Well, and do you know which prestigious international show that they launched that original Skyward? Yes, that's right. Our exhibition in San Francisco. So there is video of them launching it. Our thing it's gone now. But they really UTM, or are they more a software company for managing flights?
I think we see a lot of the time people in the kind of, if you're not building a drone, you must be in UTM. That's kind of what we kind of get lumped together. But I think we would have categorized Skyward more on the kind of fleet operations management end. So less about UTM and more about kind of the logbook and the maintenance and processing data and what you do with the drone once you get it airborne, as opposed to how you get lots of drones airborne in one place at one time, and then how you start to remove the pilot from the loop. So that's kind of, I think, a big differentiator. in the market.
I think
But it is always sad, yeah, when you lose it.
They have
lose a
automated LANC, didn't they?
Yeah, they had LANC. I think a lot of the US guys kind of had to have it, right? Because if you were a US drone operator, you wanted a tool that would help you get access to those LANC zones. If you were already doing all your flight planning in something like Skyward, Measure, or whatever it was, then it made sense to have an ability to go and do that. But we've always maintained that, an integration to LANC doesn't make you a UTM. That's, LANC is effectively the UTM in that point, right? You're just calling out to it, asking it to give you an approval. So yeah, I think you see a lot of folks say that, because you're on the LANC list, you're a UTM. I don't really see anyone on that list that I classify as a UTM today. But yeah, I think it's just
Altitude Angel still is. You can get your LANC. You can't get your LANC.
No. We opted not to comply with the changes that were coming in whatever version it was, 2 years ago, when we said, thank you, we're not interested just yet. We will go back, we're going to keep an eye on it. And when we can do the kind of things that a UTM actually needs to do, for example, give someone a decent user experience so that you don't have to have the Altitude Angel logo rammed in your face inside the application that you're using, which is basically something the federal government calls deep linking, which to everyone else on the internet is called an iframe. And this frame pops up and it's got the company who owns the LANC integration. It's got their brand. You've got to log into it again. It's like an island of functionality. Whereas actually all the UTM wants to do is say, well, I already know all of this stuff about my user. I've got an integrator that wants to build a better app or a better interface for their customers. And they just need to call out to get the permission digitally. You can't really do that, enable that for a third party. So that's kind of why we said, well, look, it's a lot of effort to keep complying. And actually, we don't want to offer our users our user interface in their apps. And most of them don't want it anyway. They'll take it, but they don't want it. So we won't bother complying. And we kind of graciously pulled out and said, we'd love to come back. We'll keep an eye on what you guys are doing. We're still sort of a member of the MOU that's been signed. And hopefully they'll sort it out at some point and address it. Every time people bring it up, the FAA say they're working on it. So they've been working on it now for like 5 years. So hopefully they'll finish it.
Well, yeah, they've caused a bit of a storm in the AAM world, but we'll perhaps go to that in a second. And I think, didn't they announce this week that they're looking for more UTM partners? I think, did I see that, or am I making that up? Perhaps I'm making that up.
Was that, I can't remember if that was NASA doing all the AAM stuff and talking about what they're doing. But yeah, again, I think the term UTM is used to just basically mean anyone that's doing something operationally with a vehicle. So, are you a UTM if you've got a fleet of drones that you fly? Are you a UTM if you've got two? Or are you a UTM if you're doing something else? And I think for us, UTM has just never been about the bit that the operator does with their drone. The record keeping, all the important stuff that needs to take place, the process, the compliance side from an enterprise perspective. That's not the bit that we do. We focus on the flight.
Now, and this is, you don't know I'm going to ask you this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. David Guerin, I'm sure you've spoken to David, of African Drone Forum. He was looking to resurrect AirMap, and he wants their IP so he can have a more humanitarian UTM or experience in Africa and stuff. So basically, I suppose what he wants is everything for free. And I just said that you kind of would get it with Altitude Angel now anyway.
Yeah, actually, he did reach out. He did reach
good.
out. I mean, I've spoken to him in the past. Got great respect for David and what he's trying to achieve. I think I hadn't realized that he was trying to acquire all of the AirMap assets. That's a bold move now that Walmart own them all. But I think the request or the requirement and what he's trying to achieve are probably incompatible, right? Like AirMap's IP isn't going to give him an open source EM that folks can plug into. But actually, a service like ours will operate in Africa quite happily and allow anyone to connect and play and anyone to build apps on top of it as well. So it just kind of depends on really what his project requirements are and what he's trying to achieve. And
but then,
as I've said
sort
before,
of again, the the bit, we haven't spoken about this, but it's actually the granularity of your service. So when we were on Lake Victoria, I did put the flights into Altitude Angel. I just notified them as flights, but what you could actually provide me as a user there for situational awareness data would be quite limited, I should imagine, and that really would be so what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say is, if you are the end user and you wanted to make using any UTM, any company, other companies are available, surely they would need a certain amount of data about the sky, and you're probably better off spending more time helping them get that data of the sky, and then plugging into their system things like ADSB, RID when it comes, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've been doing probably since the Lake Victoria Challenge, that kind of time frame, was when we productionized something we call our surveillance API, which is a great way for people to say, look, I really want to, I love using the UTM that you've got. I love the service, love everything about it, but it's missing something, and I want to give it to you. So, I've got this Lake Victoria shaped ADSP black hole, but I've got some sensors and I want to connect them into the platform. And when someone does that, because they own that data, they can choose whether they share that, what we call globally. So that's available to anyone in any of our products that wants that surveillance information. But the default option is that only they can see it. So if they have one sensor or a dozen sensors, they can kind of connect them all in. And when you share with us, we share back. So if we have other stuff that is on that kind of global view, then you get it back too. So what it does do is it kind of makes it really simple for someone who's got a bunch of sensors to just connect them and not have to worry about building all the infrastructure to receive it and standardize it and normalize it. So we have loads of people that are doing that now. And actually part of our Arrow technology is also using that surveillance system. So Arrow has, as we've spoken about before, has a whole bunch of sensors, some of which are ADSB receivers. And all of those sensors become streams in the surveillance service. And that means that where we've got that kind of service deployed and those sensors deployed, we're able to supplement and enhance things like the tactical resolution service, the strategic flight planning, all the way through to drone safety map, where it'll tell you if it knows about a flight that's occurring. So, it is possible to have these sensors and just bring them and port them into the platform. And the kind of open source element is all the interfaces. So those are available for people to use. And then we give people the control over what they get for their data.
I think we're going to have to or not. We're going to have another chat afterwards. So got lots of use cases for that, which I didn't realize you did that. So that's
cool. So that's that's a cheeky little secret. I mean, it's kind of a public secret. We don't publicize it openly in documentation on our website today, but that's something that will change over the summer. The main reason for that is most of the people that have integrated right now, we're still learning about the various different types of sensors. And what we're doing is every time we encounter a new sensor, we create an interface for it and then we publish it. So we're just kind of building up a big collection for everything from your sort of ping station ADSB sensors up to your Saab G1X defense radar. All of these things have plugins into the platform. So that's kind of all the surveillance side. And then we have we have the opposite on the drone side. So what we call cooperative traffic, cooperative with us, that is, not cooperative in the broader sense. If you want to share your drone telemetry with us, you can do the same thing. So if you want to build a fleet of drones, you want them all flying around in a competition, for instance, or you want them all flying around doing delivery missions, all you have to do is send your drone telemetry to the platform, and then we'll give you back a sort of fire hose of everything you've sent us. And that might not sound like you might be wondering, why would we do this? But actually, people who build fleets of vehicles typically tend to focus on getting the telemetry somewhere, and then not on all the standardization to view it back on a single map. So you kind of have that single pane of glass view, and you can kind of just like proverbially tick a box in the API and say, right, in addition to my telemetry coming back, I would also like to see, and then you can choose that surveillance stuff as well. So we're actually doing an update on Mission Planner at the moment, which is where we have our open source integrations. And if Michael O'Bourne is listening, we need him to approve our pull request soon. But that's going to have now all of that surveillance data is going to be available for Mission Planner users as well.
Oh, well, that's what we use every day. So that would be like Amazosaurus. So you just connect to the internet, and it all appears as if by magic.
Yeah, connect to the
when you-
internet.
And you'll be beating Michael with a stick to change the colors and size of the icons and everything, will you? Or does someone else have to? Is that a different? It's a hit request rather than a pull request from somebody
Hit
else.
request. Hey, he's a busy, overworked guy, right? And
He is.
I think he gets pulled in a lot of different directions, and we're very lucky to have a little bit of his attention every now and again. But I think we're probably in a queue somewhere like everyone else, right? We're just hoping that he gets to our pull request soon. But at the moment, we have a private build because obviously everyone can clone that repository and customize it. So we've got this awesome version which has got all the connections into tactical, all the connections into strategic, and will also on the bench, at least for now, will enable any of our connected vehicles to transit on our Arrow technology. So it will show you where the superhighways are, it will plot a route so you can pierce that boundary and navigate. So that's something we're keen to bring out. But the first step is getting the two-way surveillance and telemetry ingest going, as well as what we call the Copilot service. Copilot service is just very simply going to give you a nudge if we see something in the data that you may not have done. And we very deliberately called it a Copilot rather than kind of like an ATM style air traffic control service or an autopilot service, because it isn't. It's designed to give you, as the operator, some information, and you can either implement it or you can ignore it. So it's a really kind of versatile service to extend and enhance. And that Gary, is why I think going back to David, where you started, using Mission Planner out there, which is already open source. You're flying something that you built, or you're flying something that you purchased that works with Mission Planner. Then you're also able to then go, well, actually, I've got a bit of a gap in my surveillance information here. I'm going to go and get a bunch of Unity-based sensors and deploy those. You can then relay those through Mission Planner as well, if you wish, or you can download a standalone app that we're going to release, which will work on Linux, Windows, etc.
So I'll be able to take the ADSB feed that I have on my Mission Planner anyway, because I have a dongle for that anyway,
Yeah,
and
you
pump
can
it
smash
straight
it to
into straight into. Wow,
Exactly
that has the potential. That's fantastic, because that's a huge potential of anyone that's flying for fun or for whatever. Just pays $20 for a USB dongle and gets it going away. You're suddenly making a heck of a difference if you share it with other people. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's the goal. So it's someone, by the way, has just said that my audio, Snapshot Drone said my audio keeps dropping out. Sorry, I bought a new microphone and I clearly can't keep still enough to use it properly. Let me know if this is better or worse.
Yes, it's better.
But yeah, that's kind of technology we've been kind of building the kind of cloud infrastructure to support for years now. There are hundreds of instances, hundreds of virtual machines running, working to sort of standardize all of that information. And the bit that often people forget is we're not just kind of bringing in your telemetry, we're bringing in everyone else's, and then we're also bringing in all the surveillance. And the surveillance is very noisy, unclean data. So, the example I like to give folks is just imagine you're in the middle of a big field, and in the middle of that big field, you've got a radar from vendor A, a radar from vendor B, and you've got your ADS-B sensor. They're all in the same place. And then you fly a drone, for instance, a kilometer away. All three of those sensors are very likely to disagree about where that thing is. So, some of them do it by 300 or 400 meters. So they could be out quite a lot. And some of them, for instance, don't give you an altitude. They'll give you a bearing and a distance, but not an altitude. So we have a whole process which has to run virtually in real time that fuses all of that information together to try and work out, rather than giving you a map with 3 blips on it for one drone, it tries to compress them together and work out where the drone actually is. And then it will give you information about why it thinks it's there based on what it can see. So it's it's a very significant engineering effort and testing effort to get it to function. So that's what people can kind of benefit from.
Oh, that is music to my ears. And I honestly haven't spoken to Richard about this. True.
No briefing.
There's been no. I haven't set this up. But that sounds amazing. The Mission Planner bit is, and the ability to to pull together, because we've taken it down now, but we've had 10 or 15 ADSB receivers, put them all together for about a 500-kilometer corridor here in South Africa. So we've played this game at home, and it would be so much easier if it was on Mission Planner and it was all part of the system. That's just fantastic. Tell me, is your trial still? Was it at Heathrow or Gatwick? Your current trial that was going on? Is it still going on?
Well, we've got them actually in both airports. So Heathrow, I think Heathrow is still using it. Gatwick are sorting out commercials for taking it forwards, I think. So I don't know where they're at the moment. But we've got
the reason I'm asking is this claim last week of another drone at Gatwick stopping flights for 15 minutes. So you should have some data on that.
So I think in the wider platform we will, but you probably heard me bang on a lot about privacy in the past. Gatwick's data is Gatwick's data, so that's locked away in their platform. Where there would be a possibility for us to have a view on some of that would be if someone has come through our front door, for instance, and asked us to send a flight to Gatwick in that location versus going straight to Gatwick's front door, albeit it's made by Altitude Angel, it's their front door. If you go there and fly directly, then we won't see that flight. But we're very clear about that and very transparent about that anyway when you're using the service. But we haven't looked for anything on our side, and we haven't been asked to look either. Other than potentially what you're doing now, which is saying, could you go check?
Well, maybe potentially. Yeah, that's not what I meant. I just thought it's much harder now to claim that you've got a drone there when there's not only your systems there, but there's, I think, Ords is there. One of the big counter UAS systems is there, and
lots of
people.
counter,
Yeah, there's lots of counter stuff there, so there must be lots of data kicking about. And then dear old Gatwick says, "Well, we have to shut for 15 minutes." Well, hang on. As soon as I saw that, I thought, I know someone that should know about that. So
yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because obviously since the Gatwick original quote unquote crisis back in, what was it, 2017, something like that, a long time ago.
Was, yeah.
It feels like forever ago.
Yeah,
might have been later. I can't remember. But,
It was 2018, I think.
2018. There we go. Thank you, Bruce. The voice of reason and truth and balance. And
when's the voice of reason, truth, and balance coming on? Is he along later?
He was just there. You missed him. It was very brief.
Oh,
We don't do common sense.
but-
Whoa, 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 whoa.
2018. I remember now because it was just after we did Operation Zenith.
that's
And
right.
the interesting thing was we said, this is it now. This is the turning point. Airports all over the place are going to go out and buy lots and lots of wonderful miracle sensors, many of which will be snake oil and promises and Greek myths. And a lot of big airports have done that. And one of the big challenges they've now got is, they've got like a screen and a person behind it for every type of sensor they've got. Some of them have got like 6 or 7 different types of sensor, and they've still got no coordination. The problem is now they've just got more disagreeing data. And when it comes to a security response, no one really is any wiser. It just kind of creates the illusion of having a bit of comfort, right? Whereas I think, the service that Gatwick are trialing from us allows them to basically take that surveillance information and put it in a single place and then combine it with all the approvals. So, for instance, if they've approved a flight in a location at a particular time, then we're able to look at the surveillance data that's coming in as well. And we kind of do a very simple green or red iconography on the display. So we're seeing some stuff.
I was going to ask, on which display? On his main CRT?
No. So in the instance that we are trialing Gatwick, I don't think I'm breaching any sort of confidentiality here. They actually have a dedicated screen because it's not a controller that is operating off the service. It's effectively an assistant inside the tower. So it's a lot easier to have new equipment deployed there. We are working with a very large remote tower manufacturer at the moment to basically push that interface into their services. But clearly there's a regulatory cycle and a certification piece that they have to do to go through that. So although we've been working on that for, I think it's like 7-8 months now, that's probably still going to take about that amount of time again to continue that certification, and then it has to go out into the field to be tested. So the dream is to have that remote tower annotated in real time with information that combines what you're sensing from all of your various different miracle sensors, as well as your approvals picture as well. And That way, you know very quickly if you're just looking around in the camera feed, you know that drone over there, that's approved. That one I know nothing about. You know, I haven't given an approval. I can't correlate it with anything. So that's probably something we need to do something about. So, you know, we call that basically surveillance intelligence. You know, everyone can stick a sensor out, you know, and go and see stuff, but you don't necessarily have intelligence because of it.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah, you don't know about it. It's interesting stuff. It's interesting stuff. So there's, yeah, you wonder the chain of command for stopping flights for 15 minutes at Gatwick. Did you do a video on it, Bruce? I can't remember. I think you tweeted a bit about it.
Well, yeah, but no, I haven't done a video on it. I don't think. I'd have to check.
Yeah,
I've got dozens of videos. I don't know what they
dozens.
dozens of them.
No, it's a lot harder now. They better come up with their good reasoning now. Now they have the sensors. Now they are looking, and now they should have a. See, one hopes they have a plan.
I imagine they do. Like, I want to be really clear. Like, I'm not privy to those plans. I'm just imagining that. I wonder how, like you say, you know, I wonder if it's really difficult to get the airspace closed. But I actually wonder if it's the opposite. I still wonder if it's the easy thing to do. Like, who is going to deny, from a safety perspective, that the right thing to do is to just stop everything until we know. Whereas if you were the guy that said, no, you know, I can see all this stuff, I've got all these reports, but no, keep the airspace open, and then something happens.
Yes.
Even though we think it's probably quite remote, if it did happen, you don't want to be that guy, right? Again, I think that's another reason we're really working hard to try and get these surveillance inputs in front of the right people, so they can have, you know, actually some confidence around.
So, what does ATC do when a flock of birds flies through the airspace?
Stops flights. Stops flights. Yeah, if it's a big enough flock. We used to get, what's that thing when they all fly around at sunset?
Swarm.
Big, yeah, like swarm. Yeah, swarms. But there's another word, isn't there? But yeah, that lovely thing when they make all the lovely shows in the sky. We have to stop flying then, and then if big amounts left, or if you see big flocks of seagulls, it was in one place I was working, settling on the airfield, we have to stop flying then as well. It maybe even start diverting people. Why are you not smiling? Well. So many.
He's just
reasons.
looking at the number of viewers on the stream.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's the amazing thing is most of them are on LinkedIn. Well, there's Sam's on LinkedIn. What was I going to say? Yeah, no, birds will stop it. All sorts of things will stop it. Fod on the runway. Yeah,
Eco warriors.
Eco warriors is quite important.
Eco warriors.
Happens a lot.
Yes.
Glue, hands glued to the runway. You know, that kind of stuff.
Well, let's move on to I'll quickly go. I don't know if you've got a thought. Well, let's actually answer murmuration. That's it, guerrilla drones. That's the word I was fishing for, fly fishing. Do you think DJI is really making another FPV drone or not? I think I can answer that. This new one's got an FPV mode, isn't it?
Sort of. We've not seen any out and out talk of what we thought might be coming with regards to an FPV Pro. There were some leaked images early saying the word FPV Pro. That might have been fake. There's nothing on that. I think the more interesting thing is DJI behind what Red Cat have announced? Because
these new goggles. I personally can't think they are, because that will blow their blue credentials straight out of the water.
Well, not only that, but they talk about low latency, and DJI is not a low latency system. Plus, if you look what's inside the DJI goggles, how did they squeeze that into the Fat Shark goggles?
The DJI is more doable than HD Zero on that side of things, because it's a two-part ASIC without a much smaller overall footprint. What we sort of know is it's not HD Zero. Now, we sort of know that's the case. It's been said officially by Carl unofficially. However, it's not. Unless they're using it and not telling him. That's a possibility. Have they made a product that they've not actually sourced the components for yet? If they're only demonstrating one, they may have bought a few chipsets and there hasn't been a full deal done here. But this could be an interesting play. You can read the wording many ways. As I said in the video, digital is used in many things, isn't it, Bruce? We get digital cables, digital this, digital hands, digital all sorts. So they could be doing a play on words. And if they have done that, they're going to get quite the kickback. They do need to know that because they've used it in such a context. But I'm beginning to hear stuff, and I believe there is something new here. But I think if it is, I think it might be somewhat DJI based, maybe even white labeled. Because I don't think Teal had anything under their belt that would even come close to delivering what they've got here. If they have, it is highly impressive, and they've just jumped Orca and a few others, you know.
Well, they could have some technology that they're using in the blue SUS field. So yeah, they could have been working on something in the background that would be approved. And then
how could they sell it? How could they sell it at a commercial price or a retail price that would appeal to people? Because then it would dismantle their commercial industrial market, because they say, well, like the controller for the model, the Mini 3 versus the one for the Mavic 3, you can't have that sort of huge price difference in the same product in different market sectors because people will complain.
Yeah,
but don't forget that the US market is slowly turning towards the blue SUS program. Florida, all DJI will be banned if it goes through, and that'll be for their emergency services, fire and rescue, any infrastructure inspection. Florida, no thank you. So they might all be beginning to hedge their bets on that. Now is the moment. Now is the time for that hyper expensive set of blue goggles.
I don't know, because they're pushing this at the public. This isn't being pushed, you know, this is being pushed at hobbyists. The reason I think this could be DJI, we had a bit of a leak, which we thought was the DJI Fusion 3 system from someone at CADX. But when you now read the wording, it says something new brand, not brand new. Now, some of us interpreted that
new brand, not brand new. Very good.
Converted the word because Chinese, English, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
However, if you add this on top of this, is it impossible for DJI to have known that they're going to struggle with what's coming and perhaps white label the chipset? And even if they white label it, is it really going to be a big problem because half of other chipsets come out of China anyway. The STM32 comes out of China. So is it really a major problem if it is, especially if they do have access to the software to be able to say, here is the proof that there's nothing nefarious going on, you know?
More importantly, what's it going to do to the FPV market? Because if Fat Shark come out with DJI support, it puts HD0 in a very awkward predicament, because suddenly now you've got, you know, one of the major providers, or formerly major providers of goggles with the DJI system in it. I mean, people will probably migrate to that.
Yeah, the interesting thing is when we look back on the timing of a few things now, it all begins to align. If we look at Fat Shark appeared to dump HD0 very quickly. They said they weren't doing a fire sale, yet they clearly did. They dropped the price of the module to $99, and it was said to help adoption. It clearly wasn't. It was a fire sale. Now we look back. So there is some dots aligning here that they, around the time they acquired Teal, something changed. And then they sort of stepped away from the HD0 deal. Was there, we know there's a relationship with DJI with Red Cat, Rotor Riot, that there is communication links there. If DJI don't want part of this market, it isn't something they've ever done before quite on this scale, completely white label it. But is it impossible? No, actually. And would they be happy to do it if it was something they could perhaps take back in a few years' time? So if you think about this, if there's a lot of anti-China coming up and a lot of problems coming up, if they can get this out the door and through the door, and then in 3 or 4 years' time sort of rein it back in and go, oh, this all our technology anyway, now you have to do this, this, and this with it, or you have to, you know, label it as DJI based or something like that.
So it's certainly interesting. I mean, it doesn't really do much for me, but it's certainly interesting. I don't get as excited as other people.
One thing I noticed, are those goggles actually designed by Fat Shark? Because they probably are, because I didn't see a power switch.
There was a switch on the top.
red one for record looked like. But
no, there was a sliding switch in the middle. Did you miss it? It's the same color as the plastics, so it's in the middle. Yeah, there looks like a power switch. An interesting point you did make, though, Bruce. Someone else has also said to me, I do wonder if Fat Shark even manufactured these. And that could be something very interesting. Could this be a partnership between DJI and Fat Shark, with DJI doing the legwork on the industrial side of things? Because it doesn't look... It means they've changed the molds, Bruce, doesn't it? They've got rid of the old molds.
But the low latency thing, because that's always a relative term, but DJI has never been considered a low latency system. That's where the HD0 comes in, and they have mentioned low latency in their marketing on that press release. So I wonder how that affects things.
Well, it's a low latency at 120 frames a second, though, isn't it? They say it's low latency at 120 frames a second. We'll know pretty quick. That Cadix image... Sorry.
No, go on.
I was going to say, the Cadix image that was leaked, it looks more interesting today. It very much looks like a DJI OSD, but modified. But could it be that someone's just stole DJI's design? You know, someone else noticed the buttons look like the DJI design. They almost look identical to the buttons used on the current goggles. I wouldn't have thought they'd use the same plastics, if I'm honest. But then again, if DJI are actually doing the moldings, perhaps there's more to this than we think.
But there's no joystick. I mean, you need that little joystick to use the onboard smarts. So you got to wonder, how are they going to integrate all that stuff?
They'll sell you a remote, or it's on the side. It could be on the side. I wonder if there's something we can't see. There's a lot we don't know. We'll know a bit more this week. I do know some people have been told. I haven't. There's some people who did get reached out to. And I've been told one or two very quiet things, nothing fantastic. But even the people who've been told, I believe, don't know a lot. It's not clear what's going on from what's been shared. Interesting. Red Cat could have just become very relevant.
But who's going to buy this stuff? Because the drone market has peaked. It's in a decline now. You know, look at the number of views videos are getting, and look at the number of people actually buying stuff. I mean, we had peak FPV drone. Is there enough of a market to bring out something like this?
I think they've got to do something, because they're the market leader, aren't they? You know, okay, you know, everyone, Fat Shark are, regardless of what people think, are the market leader in FPV goggles. They're not necessarily the best, but they are the market leader. I think if anyone's going to drive things forward, it's either them or they're gone. If they don't do it now, they are over. Because I always saw Red Cat of doing one of two things. They either milk this cow until it's over and just keep knocking out cheap, inexpensive goggles and just keep him in and live off the brand, or they've got to do a fundamental step and push themselves forward for the next 4 or 5 years. They're spending a lot of money on some pretty serious companies.
Well, they might well be, they might well be having a cheaper plasticky version for the FPV market, and a big green solid metal chunky comes in a huge case and costs 15 times more version.
With training, get training too. You'll get training.
You've got to have the training. You're absolutely right. I forgot the training.
This is probably the first Red Cat product. This is, if we look at everything Red Cat have bought of late, this is going to be the first real Red Cat ownership product. Everything else has been legacy. Teal and everything is everything they acquired. This will be the very first thing under their own roof, designed and done. So we could be beginning to see a bit of something, because up till now a lot of people have been going, well, what are they doing? They're not doing anything. Perhaps they've been doing a lot and not told anyone.
Could very well be. Now, Gorilla Drone said, do we think that the Mini 3 will have the same GPS chipset as the Mavic 3? Now, that chap in England that did get the version on a couple of his videos showed how quick the GPS lock was. Quite deliberate.
And it's using Beidou and Galileo as well.
Yeah.
So something's different.
Yeah, something is different there. He remarked, I think he basically switched it on and it arrived at 14 satellites, and he took off with 21, wasn't it? Like a minute later or something. Of course, it doesn't tell you about the quality of the fix, but it's just a number.
This could really be a big problem for them now, because if they release a $400, $500, $600 drone that just works with this is now beginning to look like hardware, in the sense of I could test the module, but I couldn't test it in its environment, and there are big differences. And there could be something fundamentally they've got wrong here, and because they still haven't fixed it. That's the very simple reality here. For some people, they still haven't fixed this.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to get in before he goes. I'm going to try and make this now. I'm going to try and do this every time now. Did we see the Global Hawk, that the guys driving it allowed it to land at 4,000 feet up? They didn't notice it was at 4,000 feet and had completed its approach, and that didn't work well for it when it shut itself down.
We have pilots like that at our club.
But then the great outcry from a lot of people, again, on the world of LinkedIn, saying, oh, those evil software designers, which is partly right, I suppose, how can they have made a system that did that? What they had to do was they had to put in another flight plan or something to make it go round. There was no go round button. There was no, but the underlying or bottom line is they didn't notice that it was at 4,000 feet. That's what blew my mind. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Nobody looking out the window.
Well, there's nobody looking out the window. Well, so I got one to muck about with in simulation, and it is quite a squirrely thing. And it has made me think, well, maybe they should make a manned version so they can get the idea of, gotta be careful with this.
If they flew FPV, there wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, you would think there would be something that says, am I within X of takeoff altitude? Do. Otherwise, don't decide.
Yeah, you might think there would just be a hold button, wouldn't you?
Maybe
just
the ground,
this button.
the radio, the radar altimeter radio that was affected by 5G.
Could be.
God, that'll be it.
Yeah, that's what caused it.
That'll definitely be it. In fact, we haven't heard anything about that for a long time, have we?
No, we have. They want them to I think the FCC or FAA want all the airliners retrofitted with decent radio altimeters that aren't affected by 5G. That's the last I heard. There's a push for that now.
But I think we heard that a little while ago, didn't we? I mean, it
was in the paper again, in the news last week, I think. Yeah.
All right, I missed that then. So what else have we seen? So we've and the other one, the other Global Hawk, the big famous one. So that was a crew interface problem, and it was at 4,000 feet. And the other one was where they swapped ground control stations, and in the one that they swapped to, the fuel cock was off. So they swapped over, the fuel cock was off, and nobody noticed. And the engine stopped, and it wouldn't start, and they couldn't figure out why it wouldn't start. And then it went below the radio horizon, and that was it. Tickets, game over.
Don't they use satellite-based?
I don't know why. I don't know why they not where that was. That was in California. Maybe they only do that when it's stepping out at a bit of a distance. But the whole ergonomics of the ground control system must be awful.
Yeah,
but
you think even if they're using terrestrial radio, direct line of communications, you think there would be a fallback to another communications layer if one fails. That's the whole idea of military stuff. You got all this built-in redundancy and safety, and it's aviation. It must be safe.
Well, then, funnily enough, there's I know of a system flying today that's been set up that uses QR codes for its landing, but it relies on the QR code being decoded over and all the information back and forth to guide this thing at the very last bit over a 4G link in a very, very flaky country. So it seems like the most ridiculous thing ever, relying on a off-board computing for navigation over a cell phone link. It's just, do I read out? I never know whether I should read out what Richard puts in our private chat. Just paint stuff desert brown. And now I say, that's what you do, Richard. Come on, we all know that you just paint it in camouflage color. Perhaps add a little bit of weight. So when you make the plastic molding for whatever it is, you've got to leave a bit of room for lead, and then it's much better.
Heavier stuff is much more robust, as we all know.
Yeah, heavy is far.
There was a Chinese battery manufacturer that was just caught out doing that, selling LiFePO batteries, big old 12-volt batteries, and you pop them open, and it's actually like a tiny 10 amp hour lithium
Yeah.
battery with concrete blocks either side it in this nice plastic case. So you've got to, I don't know whether to be impressed or just completely unimpressed, but it's kind of like, why bother? Why not just build a better battery?
Which
They still do that with power banks. You can buy like these massively, supposed to be like, 10 million watt hour power banks that are like this big, and they've just got a lump of lead in them and a single little lipo cell.
Exactly. Yeah, or you buy these inverters which are like 20,000 watts, and the cables are like this thin.
Yeah. Did DJI ever fix the update issue with the FPV drone? No.
What issue?
Mads,
You mean
Mads.
You
Fine on
mean
you.
did the hacks get fixed? Yes. If that's what
Yes.
you're asking, can you get around it? Yes.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
Drone hacks. I've never said that.
No.
That
And
fixed it.
Doveran saying they messed up their failsafe for return to home in the RG-Pilot configuration. Well, exactly, and that's again why I got the thing to simulate it, because it's actually really hard to make it in RG-Pilot land at 4,000 feet. It would start telling you off a long time before. So, but if you've got a couple of qualified pilots overseeing and looking at dials, there's dials and screens and switches and knobs and levers and everything, they really ought to be able to spot that they're trying to make the thing land at 4,000 feet.
But are they qualified pilots, or they just get hauled off latrine duty because they were short a couple of guys?
They'll be qualified because it's USAF. And funny enough, the US Army's accident rate is way lower than the USAF accident rate, because the US Army just hits the button to land, press the button to go, Mr. Spoon. They just press the button to land. And they don't try and hero in and fly. And another one in an early one, Rantosaurus, last Rantosaurus, Northrop Grumman, where they just pointed out that trying to taxi at 155 knots was probably not the thing to do. It's like, oh, okay. That one went through the end of the fence at the end of the runway. So, yeah, they've had
And they let
terrible
these people
history.
play with real guns?
Apparently, yeah. Not in those. I don't think they're armed. Someone might correct me. I think they've only got sensors.
Yeah, but if it's USAF, I mean, they have real guns on some of their planes.
Oh, and they qualify because USAF allows only officers to fly drones now. Yes, yeah. Well, the USAF US Army, and I think the same applies in the UK forces, but I don't think we've had anywhere near as many incidents and accidents as.
But there have been
our
a few.
American cousins. There have been a few. The update won't let his Phantom 3 take off. Oh, I don't. FPV pilot. I don't know. Ian would be our local hero.
That's
for
a
that
very
sort of
old
thing.
drone right now.
Well, mine's been nagging me like Billio to update, and of course I won't. So yeah. But then you should never update. If your drone's working, you should never update it. That's just a bad plan. There you are. Yeah, I got one of those as well.
Yeah, mine won't take off. Why? Why won't this take off?
I can see gaps.
Yeah. That is an old saw that is so accurate. As an officer with a map, that is so very, very, very accurate. Oh, never the truest. True word said in jest, or whatever the phrase is. So what else have we seen from the industry before I put the shutters
That
down?
crowd in New Zealand still pushing their drone that's going to defog airports, and the media's been writing stories about it. Seriously, I can't see how any drone can carry enough. Like, it's only a multi-rotor. How can it carry enough payload to defog an airport unless it's a tiny little postage stamp airport?
I say bring back Fido. That's what I say. That was petrol down the sides of the runway, big trenches that just and burnt it off. That worked very, very well. Bring
Doubled
back
as
Fido.
landing lights as well.
It did indeed. It does the whole system. A simple, effective system.
A whole system in a bottle.
In a bottle, yes. So going once, going twice. Have we seen anything else? Well, we'll see you next week. Stop coughing before I start talking. Look after yourselves wherever you are in the world. I'm going to try and keep these to an hour now, just for people's sanity. Look after yourselves. We'll see you next week, 2100 GMT. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye for now.